Hi guys, Geoffrey here. And before I begin Thomas's story, I want to give that story a bit more context. So the first thing that often I think gets lost in his interviews is just how dire things are when my clients first start with me. What you need to understand here is that we enroll 1,500 people every single year. And of those 1,500 every year that we enroll, all of them basically wait till the very last minute, till things are very dire before they seek my help. And so it's a bit odd sometimes when people say, oh, my situation is very dire, will your program work? So here's Tomas, for example. When he met me, his wife had already formalized a plan to move out. It got so bad to the point where all his friends and family were saying, dude, this is a lost cause. You got to move on. It was so bad to that point. And he even expresses it in his email, in his post that he sent on July 2nd as well. The other thing, too, is that if you look at this sentence right here, I've been so rattled by my lack of progress in the program. That's also something that a lot of people face in the program as well. You know, when people join the program, they often look at the program, look at the richness of the program, and they get intimidated by it because we're not just trying to grow you from level 1 to level 5. We're trying to grow you from level 1 to level 50. And we're saying here, the only way you can reconcile, if you want to reconcile, is if you grow from level 1 to level 50. Your wife is not going to take just a good enough change. Your change needs to be massive, very, very massive. So what Tomas did, and he talks about this in an interview too, is how when he joined the program, he wasn't actually invested in it. He was still seeking shortcuts. He was still seeking remedies of, okay, this program is great, but is there a faster way to do this? So he joined other programs. He went to other things, and he realized that at the end of the day, there are really no shortcuts. The only way to reconcile properly is if you grow yourself. And it doesn't really matter also if your situation is unique or so you think is unique. If you look at any of my client stories, all of them start off in a very dire situation. They all think their situation is unique until they learn the principles and realize it's not really that unique. And Tomas will say exactly why this process isn't really that unique. Whatever situation you face, the remedies are always the same. And so because he followed the process here, 6 months later, they're reconciled. But notice that 6 months here is him going ham, giving it 100%, not 50%, not 80%, 100%. And so in this interview, I want to show you the starting point, the ending point, and the bridge. The 5 key lessons that he had to lead to his amazing, amazing journey for 6 months. So with that said, let's get to it, guys. Let's go. Hey everyone, Geoffrey here, and welcome to another video. Welcome back to my channel as well. And today I have Tomas Ravelid. Did I say that right? Just Tomas, right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, you do.
Yeah. So Tomas here has been in the program for 8 months, I believe. Correct?
There and thereabouts.
There and thereabouts. And I chose this interview with Tomas because his story, I think, will be very relevant to a lot of you. In a sense that I think what he went through in the beginning, what he tried in the beginning, is very relatable. So Tomas, I guess give us a bit bigger picture here and better understanding of how are things like before you found me in the program. Start from the beginning when you were already pretty much getting divorced already. But start from the beginning and lay out the milestones here.
Yeah, so January, I got an email from my wife basically saying we're separated, meaning that in 12 months from now, the divorce papers are going to be signed and this is done. I'm done with you. This is it.
This was January 2021, correct?
Exactly. So this year. And that is obviously, I understand. You know, I've always said I understand her reasons why. Like there's no hiding the fact that I've been messing up a lot. And yeah, I deserve to be in the position that I was in.
Yeah.
So
tell us, like, what when you said you knew you were messing up a lot, like what was that like? Give us some examples of what mess ups you discovered, at least now looking back, 2020 vision. What were they?
Yeah, no, I mean, biggest one really, I think my crutch had always in the past been, diving into alcohol or drugs when things got difficult in my life. That generally always led to me making mistakes in my marriage. And yeah, I can see, because this was not, it wasn't the first mistake that I had made. Had been going on for quite some time. But I think now looking back, the ability to spot the slide, for me to start kind of, oh, you're drifting into a danger zone here in how you're behaving and what you're doing, and the impact something has that I do on a daily basis, how it impacts everything long term.
Yeah.
And I would have heard that, but I didn't understand it. It's one of those things. It's like, yep, get that, didn't understand that.
Yeah.
So this was probably the first time where she took this real step of going like, that's it, screwed up for the last time. It's over. I'm done. Like there's no going back from this. So I guess I started by kind of throwing myself into some sort of pity pit for a while, feeling sorry for myself. And
during this pity pit, I know you remember you mentioning that you played this victim mindset as well, where
big time.
You actually blame circumstances. Maybe you blamed her even, to say like, why don't you want to try? I mean, what were the narratives that were running through your head at that time during this pity party months?
Yeah, it obviously wasn't my fault. It was, there was definitely parts there where I was trying to piece together the reasons why I had done what I had, and just, make an explanation, trying to explain myself out of it, being a sleazy salesman. So all of these things were, they're looking back, like I cringe with. So January, and then, we had some back and forwards because of the housing situation where we lived real.
Hey, Thomas, sorry to cut you off. I'm hearing like some pumping or something on somewhere.
Can you hear the birds?
Is that the bird? Sounds like a bird.
There is a bird.
It's a bird. Okay, we'll just call it out to say like there's a bird near a window or something, and then we'll take it.
Yeah. But the dog's gone now, so the birds can't swoop in.
No worries. So continue. Sorry, we lost you there. Yeah, continue.
All right. So January, probably up until April, was pretty destructive, feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah. Hey, Thomas, sorry, that bird is really, I can barely hear anything you're saying. Is there a way that we can close the door, window, or something?
Let me move to another room and give it pretty quick.
Okay. Hey guys, so welcome back. Sorry about the brief intermission there. We actually had to move locations because a bird was outside Thomas's window and making a bunch of noise. So we moved to another room. But Thomas, I think you were talking about how basically you were playing victim to yourself, and the narratives that you were playing out during that time when you were playing victim. One of the things you said was, told yourself, this is not your fault. Continue. Like, what other narratives did you have at that point?
And I think, complaining to close friends, getting that kind of buy-in support that you get from oh mate, that'll be all right. And, surely not. Surely she's not going to break up the family over something like that. And just letting that kind of stuff seep in. And at the same time, because I'm buying into all of these illusions, I'm completely letting go of any power that I had in the situation. So I was just there, pointless, drifting around, feeling sorry for myself. And yeah, looking back, it's just like that big mistake.
So obviously, eventually you switch your mindset to where you stop playing that victim. What changed?
we had a little reconciliation. You know, we were living together on the same roof, being separated. Then we got back together for about a week. There was other guys in the picture, and like I messed that up too because I was too needy. And
Yeah. So essentially, I think she actually decided or wanted to come back. She actually came back for, I think you said, a week.
something
Something
and
like that.
I think
In that week, yeah, in that week, you were basically using your current self, your same self, who's needy, like victim, all these things, just a loser, Thomas, right? To try to get her back, essentially. And of course, that neediness doesn't come across very genuine. And we'll talk more about this later. It doesn't come across very genuine. It comes off fake. It comes off pushy. It comes off forceful. And it shows that you don't really understand what the real problems are. And so 1 week, she was out again. And then you discovered that there was other people in the picture. She started dating other people because you guys at this point were separated. I mean, you guys were dead set she was dead set on a divorce.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's not like there's an affair going on here. It's just, semantics, right? It's like, I want to find someone else.
So, I mean, that was obviously tough. And I think in that period, then, the desperation was like, I was scouring the internet for quick fixes for sure. And I've been in contact with another program. It was perhaps not so much about saving a relationship. This was more about changing myself, which I think is the right path, what this was about. I didn't really gel with that. I kind of exited that program, and then I even wasted money on getting out of it. But
so you actually joined the program and you exited out of the program.
I joined another program, and then in the same space, I came across your content on YouTube and obviously devoured it. And I don't know, I just kind of felt that this was going with this program was where I needed to go.
Yeah. Which program was that, if you don't mind me asking?
You know what? I think it was something called Alpha Code or something. Some Australian.
Okay. So it's about like masculine building, building your masculinity, building your manly, stuff like that.
More along the lines of that, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously now we have a good picture of where you are. So wife wanted to separate, basically separation with the intent to divorce. Obviously she tried to give you a second chance. You effed that up as well. And then she was dead set on divorce. She found someone else who seemed to be a better suitor than you.
Yeah.
And then we're here talking. Obviously it's a success story. Tell us, how are things like now?
Well, things are good now. Things are really good. Better than it's ever been. I think we've been back together for 3.5 months. And there's 2 people that went away and come back. And in the time they've been away, really worked on themselves. There's not as much as I'd done all of the work myself.
I think it's mutual.
My wife has done a lot of dealing with her own issues too. So it's been, it's magic. Really is awesome.
Yeah.
Just we spent Christmas together with my little family together, not patched up, but like genuinely feeling stronger than ever.
Yeah. So the wedding rings are back on, right? Was that voluntary on her side, or did you have to kind of make that happen? How did that come about? Because that's a big milestone.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, and I reckon 2 months before she even asked me, okay, what's going to be different this time? I had somehow gotten myself into this program and become untethered and starting to live my life the way I wanted to, not as revenge or anything along the lines, but I was content. I was free in that sense, and I was starting to get excited about what laid ahead. And I'd realized really quickly that through the learnings in the program, me pushing for an outcome such as get your rings back on, it'll come eventually. Like, what does it matter?
Yeah.
And
that's the funny part. Yeah. Because like a lot of people listening to this,
they're probably in a position where they're really struggling in their relationships and they're looking to the outcome. They want that outcome to happen. But you're saying, which is interesting, this is the mindset that we try to cultivate in the program. Is like, if you just do the process and you find the right process, you do it and you understand it and you execute it every day and you be consistent. Her putting her wedding ring back on, coming back, choosing you, coming back to you, having great conversations, finding win-wins, that's just a natural artifact of the processes. You don't need to try to manufacture it. You don't need to push it. You don't need to desire it. It just happens. And I think you brought up an interesting point too, that, you mentioned it's not just me who's doing the work, but it's about my partner too. And we can have a very interesting philosophical discussion about this, which is that, on one hand, your partner is always working on themselves. Whether you think so, you know it or not, they're always working on themselves. Whether you are working on yourself as well, that's another question entirely, right?
Yeah.
Now, what often happens is a lot of men, they are in a position where you were faced with divorce, and they play victim and they start blaming their partner.
Yeah.
And for a person who likes to work on themselves, like your partner, if they see you playing victim, it shows them that you are not in the mindset to be able to even understand what you did. If you don't understand what you did, you can't even work on it. And so in her mind, it's like, there's no hope because this guy doesn't even understand the mindset to be able to even recognize his own mistakes.
Yeah.
He's out. And
I think her main thing was always like, oh, you're going to repeat this mistake again. The confirmation bias that's super strong about this is what Tomas does. He's super good 97% of the time, but then something happens and he derails himself and off we go and there's an issue. And I have to, and I'll be the person suffering from it. So
let's dive deeper into that, because I want to clarify, I think for a lot of people here, what the root problem is in a lot of relationships. So you mentioned, this is Tomas. Tomas just fucks up. He is great 90% of the time. I think he knows what he should do. He knows what to do, but then 10%, 5% of the time, he just can't help it. When things get hard, when things get really difficult, he panics. He doesn't know how to take it. He goes back to alcohol. He goes back to drugs, get angry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the main crux is always, this is a major, major safety issue. It's impossible for someone to feel safe with another person who cannot take the heat, who cannot take the pressure, who doesn't know how to handle themselves during very tough moments. Right? And
spot on.
This is not just about you being 90%. So a lot of men, for example, when they get faced with this prospect of divorce, they start to mention all these things they do right. Well, I do this, I do that. Here's the times I got it right. But it doesn't matter, because it's not about the 99 things you do right. It's about the one thing you do wrong. And it might sound harsh, but every one of you listening to this, you do this in your life as well. Let's say you work with a boss. That boss could have done many, many things right. But let's say something happens in the company, in the business, and that boss just loses his shit at one time. That's it. It'll be really difficult for you to trust that boss again.
Yeah.
It's the same thing here. Right? Safety is created not by the 99 things you do right, but it's destroyed by the one thing you do wrong. And that's exactly what you experienced. And without the safety, you got no communication. Your partner is in this very difficult catch-22 where she loses if she shares, she loses if she doesn't share. And that hopelessness compounded with the actual problems underlying it. And the fact that you can't even talk about the problems, that's what made her say eventually, F this, I'm out. I mean, is that kind of your diagnosis as well, right now, looking back?
I mean, 100% is that the focus now for us to kind of build upon the trust we've created, because we didn't have that. We had a very strange journey of getting married. We got married before 3 months into our relationship, 8 years ago. So we've definitely taken an unorthodox route to where we are. But every relationship needs that trust and safety. being able to go like in a raw and honest way, hey, I feel this, and the other person not imploding on themselves. And like, I look back and like that was me. I couldn't take that. It's awful, awful husband, awful friend.
Yeah. I mean, people often get confused when I say, for example, like, you know, like when we get applications for the program, the first thing people want to do is they want to tell me their story, their life story. Yeah. Here's my situation. Can this work? And I always say to them, your situation is never unique. It's never unique. And people don't understand why. And the reason why I say that is the problems itself in relationships are never the problems.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't have safety to talk about the problems. You don't even have trust to talk about the problems, because if problems come, you have problems in a relationship, but you have the safety and trust to talk about it. The problem is not a problem. It's an opportunity to actually discuss things. But if you don't have safety, the problem becomes compounded. It becomes festered, and that's where everything happens. So it doesn't matter what you're facing. It could be money issues. It could be infidelity. It could be whatever. You build the safety and trust, you build everything. You don't have the safety and trust, you got nothing. Everything is rooted on that one problem, which is why we say no one's situation is really that unique.
Yeah.
And the reason why we struggle to create safety going lower is really the problem with the self, which brings me to my second point here. And I'm going to let you talk more on this one.
Yeah.
Is the difference between working on the relationship directly versus working on yourself first. And I think this was a big shift that you made when you joined the program. Is all about, how do I market myself? How do I appear like I've changed? How do I convince her to stay and come back? To, let me work on myself first and I'll let her decide for herself. Tell me what that journey was like for you on that transition, and what made you change your mind there? What paradigm shifts caused that shift?
That's a good question. You know, I didn't enjoy coming into this program. I found it, I was pretty weak and pathetic in my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey was like the tough love that came from you, from the community. Like it was the right thing with it. Like, I can't stress that enough. But at the time, it was a bit like,
I remember that, because I remember when you first came in, it was tough. Like me and Jason and Jay were like, this Tomas guy, is he even right for the program? Like, I don't think he's actually looking for the right things, because I think a lot of people, when they join this program, they think this program is going to teach them like what to say, what to do. And they want to get this immediate result. And when you don't get this immediate result, there's like so much internal work and so much complexity. They go like, well, shit, I don't want to spend months of my life just figuring this out.
Yeah.
Right. Was that your mindset at that point?
Well, I mean, not too far off it. I wanted the scripts, because the scripts, that's what I do for a living. You know,
Your sales, right?
I'm in sales. So saying the right thing at the right time with the right tonality and all of that, like, okay, cool. That's something that I could probably master. But I don't know. It came to the point where there was something mentioning around, like, if I give away my power by being a victim, or all of the stuff that and I was really perplexed in the beginning why the teachings were around, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And I was like, I want to know what I'm going to do instead of not what I'm going to do. But then I just kind of clicked. I'm like, fuck, if I do this, then I lose my power. And what chance do I have then? And I remember my mother-in-law having told me years ago, when we'd had another marital bump, that, you know, it only takes one person to save a marriage. And I could have argued until the cows came home about, no, that's not true. But it came back in the program, and I bought into that, and I made it kind of my mantra around, like, no, I can fix it. What a great comeback story. And then all of a sudden, the Tomas Rambelit stubbornness kicked back in and go, I ain't giving up on this.
Yeah.
And then it became more of a, you know, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show myself. And that kind of got me moving forward with some purpose in the program. And then I realized really quickly, like, no, this is for me. This is, no matter what happens moving forward, this is for me, because I got places to go. I want to be something real. And if I don't take this pain and heartache and turn it into that reality, then this is a really wasted opportunity.
Yeah. So Thomas, I think that bird is back again. It's deafening.
Let's see. Close up.
Okay, that's much better. Much better. Okay, perfect. So sorry guys for the intermission again. Just close the window to make sure the bird doesn't disturb us again. But you're mentioning basically, I think it was just like this switch where your mom had said, hey, it doesn't take two to save a marriage. And you heard me saying the same thing and you're like, oh, let me investigate this. And that's when I think you started to dive deep into the processes much deeper. But I think a different side to this too is also from the realization that you can find the perfect words, you can find the perfect set of words, the perfect things to say and do, but your partner at the end of the day will know if your changes are real or not. And when she came back to you for that week and ended up backfiring on you, I think that's a perfect example of how you can't just fake these changes. And I think once you experience that you can't fake the changes, that's when you really learn your lesson in life. You get a slap in the face and you go, okay, let me look within now. There's nowhere else to turn because I gotta admit it, I haven't looked within yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to address this question of the program's complexity, right? And there's always two things I always tell people. One is that complexity is a good thing. If you want to get a program that has 10-minute videos, maybe 2 hours of content, 4 hours of content total, easy, give you scripts, easy to understand, you can understand it in a couple of weeks and you're like done.
Yeah.
Then you are free to buy those few $100 programs, whatever it is, and see how that works. But you'll always find that it doesn't work. Because again, you need deep change. And to get deep change, you need to embrace that complexity, the multi-layered nature of deep changes. And complexity just means that you're about to learn something incredible. Like if you buy a program and that program teaches you stuff you already know, and you are not confused and overwhelmed by what the program is trying to teach you, you have just been scammed. Because they're just teaching you the same things you know.
I 100% agree. And, I tell myself that like, this is great. You're confused and bamboozled. That means you're in the zone of actually learning, as opposed to, oh, I know that. Because as soon as we have that, I know that, we just relax a little bit and, we're not listening as intently. And it's not that important. I know that one. I know that. I don't need to do that. But here was a program where I'm like, what does it mean? And just having to kind of really, really dig in. And thankfully it was just like, way too stubborn to give up, because the old me would have given up. Somewhere along the lines, I found a new version of myself in there, in that struggle. And I'm ever so grateful for that occurring.
Yeah. Let's talk about that shift in how you approach the program in a bit. But I think the second reason why I say complexity is always good, Thomas, is you imagine you're taking a test, right? And this test is so freaking easy. Everyone can get 100. If everyone can get 100, there's no way to differentiate yourself. There's no way for you to really win. Everyone's just the same. Everyone gets 100. But if the test is so complex that nobody gets 100, then that's when you can really differentiate yourself. You can really tell who knows their stuff and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And in the relationships world, to be honest, you are facing competition. Your partner, if they're as valuable or as high value as you think they are,
Yeah.
They have options, right? And regardless of whether you're married or not, you're asking someone here to spend the rest of their life with you.
Yeah.
That's a big ask. And so you
Big
can't
time.
blame them for looking at the existing relationship and going, I don't think I want to be here anymore. I want to find someone else. You can't blame them for that.
No, and like this is also the relationship market is not set up whereby, hey, how about we do 4 or 5 months and then that's it. Like each relationship, it's this kind of ongoing thing. So like anything, you got to remain relevant.
Yeah. And so whether you admit it or not, you can accept this or not. Relationships is complex. You need to understand the complexity of emotions, the complexity of other people, the complexity of yourself in this symbiotic relationship of the marriage. That's complex. And if you go to the program and you think, oh, this is way too complex, I want something simpler, you're just basically saying, I don't understand the game. I don't have no interest in understanding the nature of this journey of relationships. I'm trying to seek shortcuts into something that doesn't have a shortcut. Then you're doomed if that's the case,
Yeah.
So tell me that, so that moment when you made that shift and you finally embrace the complexity and you're like, okay, these processes is bamboozling me, but I'm going to go all in anyway. At what point was that after you joined the program? Like how many months into joining the program there?
I'd say that probably was June, late June, there and thereabouts. I even decided to take 8 weeks off work because I wanted to really deep dive into it. So I set aside 5-6 hours a day, and I really went for it. There was a number of reasons as well. The job that I had at the time was very stressful. So I kind of felt I tapped myself out completely at work and had nothing left for the program because we were still living together. So as much as that was difficult, it's also a massive opportunity because had we not, she wouldn't have seen these changes firsthand.
Yeah.
So that was a decision that I made. She wasn't overly pleased with that, but that's okay. Again, it tied into that whole being untethered and I'm doing what's right for me. And long term, this is going to kind of work out. So yeah, I'd say June, and yeah, when hard at it.
Yeah. So again, the first step you took is really removing this victim mindset. And I think the victim mindset first that you need to remove is when your partner wants divorce, you can deny it all you want, but at the end of the day, it comes to you. You were not able to create safety. You were not able to handle your shit during the difficult moments. You were not, you were not bulletproof. You were not untethered. You didn't know how to break feedback loops and turn negatives into positives. You didn't know all these things. And yes, at the end of the day, it's your partner who's going to be the toxic one who initiates divorce, initiates the separation, sees other people, doesn't want to talk, stonewalls, gaslights, gets angry at you, whatever it is. But we also have to acknowledge our part in this as well, where we didn't do our part here and we couldn't have done our part. I think the second layer to victimization is when you join the program is looking at the complexity of this and really realizing that either now or later in my life, I'm going to need to learn this stuff. I'm going to need to learn how to embrace this complexity and master this complexity. I think that's a quote that says, don't pray for life to get easier. Pray for yourself to get stronger to handle the difficult life. It's almost the same thing here where a lot of people, I think they look at the complexity and they go, let me look for some other shortcuts to see if there's any other easier ways. They exhaust all those options, realize there's no easier way, and they realize, okay, fine, I'll bite the bullet. Let me work on this.
Yeah.
It takes sometimes people years, decades to find that. Well, it took you 3 months, 4 months to really make that shift, which is an amazing time saver.
Yeah, handy. Leaves me time to do other things. Now, I mean, this is not done in any cool way. This has just been a fantastic framework that I'm going to continue to working in, because, you know, you mentioned earlier about the rules of the game, and it's just like, you know, I want to be at that level where I can understand the game to the point where I can actually do a shortcut if needed, because I fully understand everything, not just because I got lucky and I got away with it. This is like, you know, being able to make this even better as we go on, because that's going to help me teach my children to start their relationships as they grow up and avoid the heartache for themselves and their partners moving forward. So all of this is super important, and it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I think what you're saying too here is like, we're trying to make people into performers, basically. And if you look at any performer, they make the difficult, the complex seem effortless. Look at a basketball player, musicians, whatever. But to make that effortless requires a shit ton of practice, a shit ton of mastery, right? Which is what you're saying is, I want to master and do the work short term so hard that I can make the complex seem effortless. That if I want to take a shortcut and just show my magic in that moment, I can do that at any time because I've already done the work in practicing. And I think a lot of people, their approach to life is very different, right? You see people, for example, they spend decades of their life trying to find a job that fits them, a relationship that fits them, because they think if it's not effortless, then it's not meant for you.
Yeah.
But that's actually not true. It's like that saying again, the grass is not greener on the other side. You just need to water your own grass.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's the realization you had. Yeah. Go ahead.
Big time. And you know, like the good thing with the group and the community and everything, and you know, some individuals in the community being extremely great at creating good analogies, and me starting to kind of look at other parts of, you know, same thing. When I started sales, I was horrible, useless, but I stuck to it. And here we are 20 years down the road, and I love it as much as I did when the coin dropped back then. And I continue to refine, and I can see all of it. You know, I read somewhere about Usain Bolt's performance time over his 20-odd year career of training didn't equate to more than maybe about 105 seconds of actually sprinting in finals. But 20 years of work going into that small amount of time of performing at peak level. And I find that really interesting. You know, it's because some days you do well, some days you don't. And then just being able to kind of go back and refine and do again. Because the good thing, you get to have a go at all of this as long as you live.
Yeah. And I think that brings us to the next point, which is about untethering. And I think you mentioned that that's really the biggest milestone or biggest breakthrough that you had in terms of getting you the results in your relationship and in life as well. So just to define untethering for a lot of people, this is not just about being more detached from the outcome or from circumstances. And this is not about not caring and not giving a shit, basically. This is about untethering from the outcome and focusing yourself on identifying the right processes and playing out the right processes every single day and having the intrinsic motivation to do those processes. Just like how Usain Bolt, for example, when he practices for 4 years for that one 20-second event, something like that. How can he stay motivated for 4 years for that 10-second? That's hard, right? And the secret is to really untethering and retethering through the process where you actually enjoy the process intrinsically. Tell me what that journey was like. That journey was like for you.
You know, I went, because I went back, and when I started learning about being tethered, my research went back on myself and how I was so connected to my partner's mood. She'd be in a bad mood, that ruined my life, and I couldn't take it. I couldn't take her being upset with me, or being upset with her car broken down, or whatever it may be. I felt that impacted me so greatly, and I could look back and I could see that. And now when I wasn't together with her, we were separated, it allowed me to find that perfect balance between not caring, still caring, but not being affected. So when I started understanding that, then I was able to apply that to more things. And then as I was going over, because I'd say the material about being tethered and bulletproof vest, I go over that. I'm still digging into that, because it's not nowhere near perfected for me.
There's so many illusions to being tethered, right?
Yes.
For example, you talk about the victim mindset, right? So you talk about the victim mindset where, let's say your partner is shutting down on you.
Yeah.
The first instinct for a lot of people is when their partner shuts down and refuses to talk, refuses to communicate, is we lecture them, say, hey, a good relationship, you need to communicate. We can't keep this going, right? Or we talk to our guy friends and we say, my wife doesn't know how to communicate. I don't know if we can make it. So it's always about them, right? But what's really happening is that victim mindset is causing you to be tethered, where now you feel annoyed, you feel frustrated when she's frustrated, when she's annoyed. And if you look at good leaders all over the world, good leaders cannot be untethered, cannot be tethered, right?
Yeah.
Because imagine if your employees are having a bad day and that causes you to also have a bad day, then everyone has a bad day and nothing gets done.
And I mean, it happens. It happens every second, everywhere in the world. It's sad and super common.
Yeah. So untethered to where your partner's mood and the ups and down cycles of hers doesn't really affect you anymore. From that tetheredness, from that untetheredness, what next? What was the next thing that led to your breakthrough here in your relationship, you think?
I think the next thing was, okay, when there's no focus on that outcome, then let's focus on doing these processes and doing them better and understanding them and applying, first principle thinking and all of the stuff that it's frightening, because as you're rolling through the content, it's just like, how did he know that I needed that now? These things are sort of coming in, and then, once I broke through that whole feeling sorry for myself and could really dive into this, then it was just that flywheel effect was really started to come along.
Yeah.
And I'm still today, still very surprised that my wife asked me and that we got back together so quickly. That I did not expect that, but that's probably the key to it as well, because I wasn't even focusing on that. I was just doing me.
Yeah. And I think that's another crucial point of untethering is it makes whatever you do seem genuine.
Yeah.
Like if I'm, let's say, changing and I'm bettering myself, and every week I ask my partner, so did you notice it yet? Did you notice it yet?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're obviously doing this to get me back. You obviously don't enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy the process, I guarantee you that when I come back, you're going to stop it, because there's no reason for you to keep doing it. Why would you keep doing something you don't like? But the very fact that you are becoming outcome independent and you're more process oriented and you actually enjoy the process and you show that through the micro expressions, microtones of everything that you do, it makes it easier for people to actually notice your changes, to actually come closer to you, because they know that I'm not going to get bitten once I come back,
Yeah.
So you're surprised, but I'm not surprised. Yeah.
No, I am. And even my wife has said, like, yeah, I was surprised that I kind of wanted to take a look and asked you all of those questions, because it was a little bit out of the blue where she asked me, like, okay, because I'd say every day in a million different ways, I'd ask her, or was nudging on, how about you and me? And I know how annoyed she was. But then one day she just like, okay, well, tell me then, what the fuck's going to be different this time? And I remember she's going to ask me one day. So I wouldn't say I'd prepared a speech, but if you get asked, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
So, and clearly it worked. So,
yeah. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about too is mentioned entropy is real. What does that mean to you? So for those of you who are listening, entropy is basically, if you look at the physics definition of the word, is that things tend towards disorder over time. And usually we think about entropy in terms of physics only. We think about cars going through wear and tear, shoes that we wear, etc. But it also happens in the relationship setting as well. And entropy is not really a physics thing, but it's really a mathematical, statistical probability thing. Where, for example, the example that we give, and sorry, Thomas, I'm going to ramble on for like 2 minutes here just to give people some context around this, is let's say you have a big box of puzzles, unsolved. You just opened it and you threw the box of puzzles on the table. What are the chances that the puzzle will solve itself? Answer is always 1 in about infinity. 1 variation that the puzzle will solve itself, and infinite variations where it won't solve itself. You apply this philosophy, this mathematical thing to anything in life. You'll realize that in life, for every 1 variation of how things can go right, there's always infinite variations of how things can go wrong. And so the law of equilibrium states that things will tend towards disorder. Same thing in relationships. So tell me what that means to you, like entropy. When you say entropy is real, tell me more about that.
Well, I say it's everything. It's my whole life. Because if a good example here now is like we've had Christmas. And it's great. It's awesome. It's the time of what we've all been through it. We've all probably eaten a little bit too much, drank a little bit too much, all of these little things. And it's not, the small thing by itself is really not a big deal. But when they're compiling, they cause havoc. Like I've got elbow pain because I have eaten and consumed things that has driven up the inflammation markers in my body. And I can see that if I look back, and same thing goes with everything else. If I don't pay attention to the small stuff in my relationship, in my life, I'm increasing the risk of things going wrong down the road.
Yeah. And I think it's sad sometimes to see people's cycles and how blind they are to the cycles that they have as well. Of, when they start a new relationship, things are good. They're going through this honeymoon period, but then again, entropy eventually sets in to where things become worse and worse over time. This can take 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. But then they look at themselves being on the trough of their relationship and they want to look at a new relationship, and they just repeat the same cycle over and over again. And they finally say, oh, humans are not meant to be together long term, like all these things. Yeah. But a classic example of how innocent entropy sets in is like a simple example of like an AC remote. So let's say you move in together for the first time, and like I tend to like my room really cold at night. My partner likes it warmer.
Yeah.
Let's say I tell her, hey, can we turn down the AC? Or my partner tells me, hey, can we make it a bit warmer? And of course, I'm tired, whatever it is, I get upset. I'm like, oh, just don't bother with it right now. It's fine. That one interaction should be so innocent. It could be so small about a freaking AC remote. But what you just did there was you destroyed that safety to talk about that topic and peripheral topics as well.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the next time your partner wants to bring up something to you, she will think, should I bring this up? the last time I brought something up, he was pretty pissed. He didn't respond too well. I didn't feel very good. And so she bottles that. More things get bottled. She gets even more upset. Embitterment grows. As embitterment grows, it makes it even more difficult to talk about topics. Eventually, you multiply this by a year, 2 years, 5 years. You're in a position where you both are stonewalling each other, gaslighting each other, hating each other, wanting divorce.
Yeah.
Right? It's innocent, but important. Those death by 1,000 cuts, like you said.
Absolutely. And pay attention to the little things, because they make a huge difference. You might miss it. You might miss something small, but if you don't pay attention to it and you address it, whether that is, apologizing or holding your hand up, and that's super important to me now, because
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
It never was. It'd be like, fuck, get on with it, or, like, why are you making such a big deal of it? And it's just like, like, it is a big deal because it has the risk of it destroying the relationship. And my relationship with my wife, I'd say I value more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to pay attention to this. And if I don't, then entropy is real, and it affects everything. It's like the smallest thing, like you elect not to fill up gas at a time where you probably should have, because you were trying to save yourself a set, and you're just making the wrong decision. And before you know it, that's just kind of like you're finding yourself in a real tough spot where I could have avoided this. Like, I'm here, like, little things like that. So the little things definitely make a big difference. And I think it's just paying attention to all of it, being aware.
So I think a lot of people hearing this too, Thomas, will say, well, I don't want a relationship like that, where I have to think about every little detail of what I do, everything like that. Before I go to my spiel.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people?
That's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have all small annoyances. We can choose to get annoyed, we can choose not to get annoyed. But there are things that triggers us, whatever it may be. And if I don't pay attention to things that I know from experience is going to upset my partner, or now know, reduce trust or diminish the gains that I've made. If I don't pay attention to those little things, because it's the same thing. It's like, if I don't sleep enough, I'm going to be grumpy. If I don't eat well, that's going to have an impact. All of these little things, got to pay attention to it. Yeah, I'm going to miss stuff. That's okay. But if you want to live an extraordinary life, you're going to have to pay attention to all of the details.
Yeah. And I think that's going back to the discussion of like, whether you choose to accept the reality or you try to ignore it. And again, there's a saying, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And the reality of life and relationships is that entropy is a real bitch. Things go wrong. Misunderstandings happen. And you do have to watch for these small things. And you can say, for example, I don't want a relationship that I have to watch all these small things for. But if you choose to not want to do the hard work of looking at the small things, then you have to face the hard consequences of not looking at those small things, which is you will eventually be facing separation, be facing divorce, be facing the degradation of your relationship, be facing a need where you are looking for a new relationship. Either way you choose is hard. Choose your hard. Which hard do you want to choose? Do you want to choose a hard that actually progresses somewhere, or a hard that leads you to a repeating cycle? Because that's just the nature of life and everything, right? And
100%.
Yeah. And like, the other thing too is, if that's your mentality, if your mentality to entropy is like, I don't want to be a part of that, then there's a reason why your partner doesn't feel safe with you. Because a person who cannot deal with entropy, who cannot deal with conflicts, who cannot deal with problems like we established earlier, it's hard to feel safe around those people. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And so if, let's say, your relationship is degrading and you're the kind of person who doesn't like to face entropy and face issues and face problems head on, then it shouldn't be a mystery to you why the safety is broken and why you're in the brink of a divorce or separation, etc. It shouldn't be a mystery. And the final thing also is, if that's your attitude to entropy, then there's no way you can turn a negative to positive, right? Life is about turning the negative to positive. And if you can't do that, if you just let the negative run your life, run your relationship, understand that these negatives can come from your partner, but it also can come from outside life as well. It can come from her work, her relationship with her family, and so on. And if you take that negative that just comes out of life and you're not able to lead the turning around of that, then you are going to be in the cycle where honeymoon period, death period, honeymoon period, death period for the rest of your life. If you're okay with that, that's you. That's up to you.
Yeah. I heard someone, this was completely non-related to the program, and I've been meaning to sort of share it. And the discussion was basically around things that are easy to do, but also easy not to do. If you are able to choose the right thing there by doing as opposed to not doing, because I find with entropy for me is that when I just let things go and I don't address them, that's when it becomes a problem. Where I can spot it, I address it. Okay, this is easy to do. This is an action. Do it. And not only that, that also brings confidence. Entropy is real.
Yeah,
entropy is real.
What? So you said here that you eventually shifted your attitude in the program, and I think you mentioned earlier that you actually joined another program. It didn't really resonate with you, but you stuck with this one.
Yeah.
What's the difference here? So here I want to get a better understanding too from your perspective and what your experience was like in the program as well. Like what made you stick through this one?
I think this was really a case of having a peek in, opening Pandora's box, seeing, and I said this to myself a number of times, I can't unsee this. Now I've seen what I need to do, and what I need to go through, and what I need to learn, and what I need to become. Okay, it's very far from where I am right now to that, but I've seen it, and I can't unsee it.
Yeah.
So
I think
you're looking completely oblivious.
Yeah. I think what you're kind of going through is very similar to what a lot of people go through as well, which is the way I describe it is like before you join the program, you're at level 1. And when you're level 1, you think level 3 is like the highest you can go to. So you're like, okay, yeah. I mentioned the word, like you hear the word self-improvement. You hear the word, here's what you need to do to save your relationship. And you're like, I kind of know what that means.
Yeah.
But what you don't realize when you first join the program is you get exposed to the fact that, no. You're not just 2 levels short. You are 70 levels short here. And there's a level that you don't even know exists, let alone know how to get there. And so I think when that chasm grows in you to say, now I know there's a level 70. Now your level 1 doesn't just become 2 levels lower. It's like, okay, now it becomes, you freaking suck. You better wake up now. And so I think that like jolts something in you usually.
100%. And that I felt a little bit stressed in the beginning of kind of shit where this is where I am. I need to be further along. And I think I found a way of kind of making friends with that feeling. And as you mentioned, this is like those layers, but then also going like, wow, I can probably see another 2,000 levels here. And somehow I got this real sense of calmness around, well, this is something I got to keep doing for the rest of my life. And then I changed that very quickly to, this is something I want to be doing, because this is going to impact everything. Because the amount of confidence that I've got from this to go out and pursue what I want to do in life Like I never expected that, joining a Save My Marriage program. And that's so cool. And I think that's the reason why my wife is back with me, because she can see, like, I know she's always believed in me, but that becomes a bit tiring when the person doesn't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it's instilled. And I think that's the real kind of game changer in this process.
Yeah. And I think the takeaway there for me is success principles are the same thing in every part of life.
Yeah.
Success principles in relationships, like what it means to grow yourself and so on, it's the same in relationships as in work, in your career, in sales, in entrepreneurship, with children. It's the same thing. And working out, thinking you're a high value man, thinking you're awesome is just, it's like you trying to go from level 1 to 3. Like there's so much more intangible things that you can work on that a lot of people don't even realize about emotional depth. And we mentioned antithetical thinking, untethering, and the little premises and nuances around that. The bulletproof vest. We talk about being water and being a shapeless character in our program. We talk about low tides, high tides, and how we need to continuously raise our lowest standards. Like all these things that are going to seem like mumbo jumbo to people because they're so far away from thinking this way that they haven't seen, they're not believers that they're at level 70 because they haven't seen anybody, or they don't even see what level 70 looks like. They can't even imagine what level 70 looks like. You know, that's I think what gets me out of bed every morning. It's like giving people access to this. This is level 70. The level that you don't think you had. And once you get to this level 70, relationships, career, whatever it is, any part of your life, effortless. Easy.
And I'm sure a lot of people that are kind of looking at joining this, you know, one of my main things is that I don't have any anxiety. I used to be so anxious about everything. I don't get me wrong. Like I have sensations like anyone else, but I think that's been one real strong upside. It's like, I'm not anxious. I just need to do the right thing this moment and it'll be all right.
Yeah. Process driven. That's really it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Thomas, I think that was about an hour, just over an hour.
Yeah.
So I do want to start wrapping this up, but I guess, you know, a lot of the people listening to this, the audience of this will be, you know, people who are really struggling in a relationship. They probably waited till things are very dire before even seeking or looking for help. What is your one takeaway, one biggest takeaway, the next step that you would like to give these people, if you could say something?
These are people who are looking to take some action to save their relationship.
Or not. I mean, again, I guess a better way to ask the question is, if you could give yourself a piece of advice a year back to a version of you a year before, what would you say to him?
It's a great question.
Take your time.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably advise myself a year ago to find something that you believe in that you can follow. Because I do think that in order to be able to lead, you need to be able to follow. So I think starting there, if you're a little bit lost, I was lost. So yeah, find something that you believe in and that you want to follow.
Give me an example of that. It's like, what would you follow? If you were to go back a year from now, what would you follow?
I mean, like, the great thing with this is that this has kind of been, you know, I've always been into fitness and health and competing. I still play football. I'm way too old for it. But just kind of getting all of those components in place. Like I can see a lot of those analogies, and then not making it work mentally. my own head and my own life. So finding something, whether that is, whether it's a religion or like a program like this, we're finding something to really sort of believe in that has all the tools. And, that's not easy to find, but, everything comes from within. So be brave enough to look inside and go, okay, this needs addressing. How do I address that? Being curious and not scared, and finding something to believe in.
I think what you're saying also is, the way I interpret this is, find a process and stick to that process, and believe in that process and stick to it. And that process can be a religious process. It could be this program. It could be another program. It could be something else, but just stick to it.
Yeah.
But first, you got to make sure that you got the right process there. Because if you stick to something that doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Right? So find the right process and stick to the process.
Yeah.
It's almost like making a cult out of this process thing, right? It's like Christians believe in the God, whatever. We believe in the process. And that,
I mean, very much. And it's just, it's something that you can do every moment of your life, in the sense that you can have pod in the back of your mind, or whatever you want to call it. But always kind of being aware of how it relates to the process that you are trying to work out, that you're trying to perfect. Because if you're not growing, you're going backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
And, this goes for everything. And I'm eternally grateful to you and to the program, because it's, to say that it's changed my life, that's an understatement.
So guys, we'll probably wrap this up here, but again, there's so much complexity. There's so much depth to what we can discuss, we will discuss in the program, and it goes way, way beyond what we can discuss on YouTube. So if you want to learn more about the processes that myself and Tomas are saying here, and you want to go really deep into the complexity, the nuances, then I would encourage you to join the masterclass that we have. I'm going to put a link down below this video to it. It's about an hour and a half, but at the end of the masterclass, we'll also show you how you can apply for the program. There is a survey there. I would want to make sure that you fill out the survey properly, because we are very selective with who we work with. But once the application process is through and you are approved, then we'll onboard you to the program. But again, the program is where all the magic happens. Like, I guess Tomas, it's really hard for me to put into words just how rich the program is. I mean, how would you describe it to someone who hasn't joined yet?
It's incredibly rich, and it's going to kind of like watching your favorite movie and realizing new things each time that you go through it. Because there's every time I go through material, it's just like, oh wow, that wasn't just a word or there's so much in here. Like, so you'll grow it in incredible ways if you can apply yourself to this.
Yeah. And looking back, like after knowing and learning a lot of the things in the program too, Tomas, how confident are you that, so you only reconcile for the last 3.5 months, but how confident are you in manufacturing that success in the future? Like, do you feel like you have all the tools to do that?
I definitely have all the tools in here. And that's great peace of mind too, because I don't really need to look anywhere else for this. I want to continue, and I know that means so much, because that's probably one of my main fears, that I got this result so quickly. I'm like, okay, well, I can relax now and I can turn this off. But I realized that obviously that's not going to work either, because an entropy was set in. So I feel really assured around everything that's here. I've pretty much been through most of it, and I'm doing stuff again, and I'm really enjoying it. The fact that I'm enjoying it, that tells me that everything is there. And knowing you, no doubt, you'll perfect this program moving forward, and I've got lifetime access. So
yeah. I mean, how much of V3 have you dove into right now?
I've looked at I'd say maybe 30% of it. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot more comprehensive. And I think every year we're going to keep making iterations to the program to make it even more perfect as we watch kind of how people are going through it. But yeah, man, thank you so much for your time. Again, guys, like one of the hardest things for me as a coach and as a creator of this program, it's just showing people and telling you guys just how life-changing this will be. If I say it to you, it's life-changing, people are going to think I'm salesy, I'm sleazy, I'm whatever it is. But all I got to ask you is like, what if this will really change your life? Because I'm confident of that. I can say that without flinching because I know it will. So if you're at all serious about saving your relationship or working on yourself in a deep, deep way, check out the masterclass, submit your application, and we'll see where that takes us. But thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks, Thomas, for spending an hour and 15 with me here. We'll be recording this on the 29th. So Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year. Thanks again.
All right. Enjoy your day. You're in Australia, so it's your morning.
Yeah, it's beach time now, so we'll
Beach time.
go up. It's good. It's 30 degrees already.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye.
Take care.